Good afternoon, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So grateful to have some time with you today on this Friday. And we have a wonderful opportunity to end the weekend, or get ready for the weekend, I should say, start the weekend with this wonderful guest and a very, very, very important conversation. As we've talked about in other YWTV episodes, this year our YWCA Northern New Jersey has committed to taking on a special campaign called Why Women Vote. And this series was based on a report that our national organization did that was across demographic and really looked into what issues were important to women as they were voting today or getting ready to vote today in our big elections, I should say, this year. We know we not only have a presidential election, but many, many other key elections alongside of it. And through that report, we identified some major areas of concern for women, and individually we've been doing a series of discussions to bring you information on those areas. But we thought it was also important to talk about voting in general. Voting looks a little bit different this year with what's been happening with our pandemic. And we have a wonderful opportunity, as I said, to talk to the person in the state of New Jersey who oversees elections to be able to walk us through some of the issues that we need to be thinking about. We know that there has been a lot of confusion and chaos across our country around the voting process recently. And that definitely makes it difficult for citizens to make and place their votes. We've especially seen it negatively impacting underserved communities, and we want to be sure that we are making sure our citizens in New Jersey have all the information they need to be able to cast their votes. It's imperative that we understand our voting rights, and it's also imperative that we understand how this process works here in our state. And we do have primaries coming up on July 7th. So make sure you mark your calendar and are definitely part of the process there. I'm so honored to have Secretary of State Tahesha join us today so that she can share information about the new voting practices that protect all citizens and also explain some of the complexities around the mail-in ballots. Thank you so much for joining us today, Secretary of State Way.
Thank you for having me, Helen.
And I have to say, just from when we posted the information that we were doing this between Twitter and some of our other posts on social media, we've had so many people reach out and thank us for having this discussion because people are confused and have questions. So let me start by telling you a little bit about our Secretary of State Way here in New Jersey. She is our 34th Secretary of State, and she was nominated for appointment by Governor Phil Murphy on December 18th of 2017, and she was sworn in February of 2018. As Secretary of State, she holds one of the nation's oldest constitutional offices that leads a department with a very diverse portfolio. She serves as New Jersey's top election official, overseeing the state division of elections and its work in securing our democracy and ensuring broad, fair access for the right to vote. She also chairs New Jersey's Complete Count Commission, which is a 27-member nonpartisan commission established to encourage full participation in the 2020 census. In addition to this critical work of protecting she calls this, and I've heard her say this, we actually did a presentation together on the census for CINJ not so long ago. And I love how she calls this the fraternal twins of democracy, her role. We'll talk more with her about that. But she also oversees the state government offices supporting New Jersey's vibrant arts, cultures, history, and business communities. You are one busy lady, and I also know that you're a mom, which we'll talk about later too. But thank you so much for joining us.
Again, thank you, Helen, for having me. And of course, to your organization, the YWCA, for all that this organization does in our communities. And I'm loving the Why Women Vote initiative that you have going on. And of course, I'm hoping all out there are remaining safe and well.
Well, thank you for that, and we do as well. And this initiative is so important, and even more important now in this climate, for sure. So, can you tell us a little bit and discuss with us a little bit about the current status of voting in New Jersey, and then specifically, um, I guess a current status, I guess, of voting across our nation, specifically here in New Jersey, and what we need to make sure that our vote counts in the upcoming primary and November election.
Okay, again, Helen, thank you for inviting me to speak about this important primary that's upcoming July the 7th. So, we all know we are living through a historic pandemic. And with this said, the focus is, of course, to balance public safety and health with moving our democracy forward. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics about how other states are conducting their elections because no two states are the same. And we are each responsible to our own voters. But the one thing I can say universally is to comment that everywhere we've had to adjust in this space. So, with that said, let me specifically speak about how the election on July the 7th, our primary here in New Jersey, which is in less than 2 weeks, folk, is getting conducted. This election is going to be primarily using vote by mail, but there will be polling places in communities. Now, I do want to be clear with everyone out there that the polling places are not going to be the same number as we routinely would have. The expectation is for counties to have 50% of the polling places open for voting solely on paper provisional ballots. Now, for those in need of ADA accommodations, they will be able to vote on a voting device. So, with all this being said, we are encouraging vote by mail. But for example, let's say you did not receive your vote by mail, or if you, again, are a voter with a disability who can't vote by mail, then there is going to be the polling place option. Now, all registered Democratic and Republican voters are automatically receiving vote by mail ballots with prepaid return postage. So there's no need to hunt down
Any
a stamp or purchase one. We've done this for you. All unaffiliated voters will be receiving a vote by mail application to request the partisan primary vote by mail ballot of their choosing, also with the return postage paid. Now, if you haven't yet received a ballot at this time, I feel you should contact your county clerk, but do it immediately and arrange to receive a replacement ballot, or plan on voting by provisional ballot. Again, that's a paper ballot on July 7th at your nearest open polling place. Of course, masked up and practicing social distancing. And all of this information can be located on our website, Elections.nj.gov. Now, I want to also add that each county will have 5 secure ballot drop boxes for the purpose of receiving vote by mail ballots from voters who may prefer not to return their ballots via mail. The locations will be under surveillance to protect against tampering, and the ballot boxes will accept the ballots through 8 p.m. on the evening of election day. That's July 7th. Ballots will be collected on a daily basis, and you can find the location of your nearest drop box in your county. Again, I'll repeat our website. I'm going to do that a lot.
we'll post it here too for everybody.
Please, Helen, elections.nj.gov. So, New Jersey voters, you have 3 ways to return your vote by mail ballot. 1, regular mail. 2, drop boxes, or you can physically return your ballot at your local county board of elections office. And I want to say, if you received your ballot, you know who you want to vote for, you can do this now, but of course, following social distancing measures. I want to further note that the deadline for receipt of mailed vote by mail ballots will be 7 days after the primary election. So that's July 14th, 2020. Those mail in ballots will be accepted. But here's the important thing. If you are returning your ballot by regular mail, it must be postmarked no later than Election Day, July 7th. So listen, I've been encouraging everyone I know, and I'm hopeful that those out here that are watching, Helen, your organization, please encourage everyone that if they are voting by mail and if they want to return through the mail, return it now. Don't wait to the last minute. In fact, my team and I have launched also a public education campaign called Make Your Mark to educate the public on this primary and how to participate in our democracy. For instance, we're reminding those voting by mail to take 4 actions to make sure their vote gets counted. Vote, sign, secure, return. So make sure you do all 4 steps so you can make your mark in the July 7th primary. I know I've said much, but I think you're also looking to see, as others are asking about what's going to be the landscape of voting in November. And I've been letting everyone know we're not there yet. Okay, we're focusing upon the today,
Yep.
July 7th. But if anything, what I can note to you and to everyone out there is that before the general election, we'll be launching online voter registration to make it easier, even easier, to participate in our democracy and, of course, safely from home.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, you covered so many important pieces for that I know I keep hearing questions about and concerns about. And it's wonderful that you have this campaign that really makes it short and simple for everyone. It totally makes sense to me that right now we focus on the primary and what's in front of us. And I'm also sure through this process we'll be able to continue to educate over the next few months after the primary our community, and maybe we'll have you back and when it gets closer to the presidential election and the other important elections in November, to be able to talk about any details there. For those of you watching, we did put the election link in the comments here on our broadcast, so please feel free to check it out there. And also, we will, for those of you that live in Bergen County, we'll put the link to the Bergen County Clerk's office also, so that you can put your, in case you have any questions and need to get a ballot as well. I see we have a comment from one of our viewers saying, I accidentally made some marks in ink on my ballot, and I don't want this to invalidate my vote. Do I just leave them or use some whiteout to cover them up?
Okay, and again, as I had mentioned in the earlier response, the best thing to do is to call your local county clerk for
Great.
guidance on how to rectify exactly and navigate. So great. That is very important in all levels of government to always stay connected to your local officials. Yep. Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you. And so, Libby, right now, as you could see, we've included the Bergen County Clerk link right under your comment, so you can reach out to them and ask that very important question. And I appreciate you asking that because we definitely want to make sure that your vote counts. So
correct.
Thank you for asking. With continuing on this conversation, so we've been witnessing what's been going on in other states like in Georgia and Kentucky. And so how is New Jersey addressing the national concerns around mail-in ballot signatures, malfunctioning ballots, racial bias? How are we ensuring that all voices are being heard? And I know that you talked, a lot about the process just now, but specifically, what would you say about these areas?
Okay, and I think that that's an important question. But again, I just want to restate that each state is different.
Different,
So
yeah.
we can't approach elections with one cookie cutter approach. But I know here in New Jersey, we do everything we can to ensure that voting is accessible and every vote counts, especially while we're in the face of COVID-19, trying to balance out public safety. And I just also want everyone to know out there, remember, this is not an all VBM election. There'll be at least one polling location open in every community and more in the more densely populated municipalities. I spoke about the additional ways to return your ballot beyond just your regular mail service. And that way, we're going to be able to reduce the volume in the U.S. Postal Service and provide the voters with more options to safely vote, sign, seal, and return. One thing I want to really note, which somewhat addresses your question, Helen, is that we have also worked to implement an important ballot signature verification process and procedures in partnership with our local election officials that will protect voters against any question of disenfranchisement. And everyone, please listen up to this, because any voter whose signature is questioned will receive outreach from their county boards of elections to determine, yes, the validity of their ballot in time for it to be cured and counted. So simply put, every day we work to protect elections of our voters. We're in partnership, as I mentioned just recently, the local and county officials who I'm taking my hat off to and all they do. We work with other state colleagues and federal partners like the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, USPS, and of course the CDC, just making sure that we're conducting fair and free elections.
That's wonderful. That's great information to know as well. And so people can, feel confident that, everything is, being watched closely and that there's processes in place to be able to follow up in case there is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So another question for you that I have is, as you know, the YWCA, our focus is to empower women and eliminate racism. And every day in our work, we look at what's happening around us through a racial justice lens. But especially, these last few weeks have obviously put even more of a focus and a highlight on this important area. So, as obviously we did a census presentation together as well. We've been focused very much here at the YWCA on census participation and clearly civic engagement through our Why Women Vote series, and which does have cross-demographic data attached in the national report. My question for you is, organizations like ours that really are trying to get everybody out to vote, what can we do to help communities of color stay involved in the electoral process, and other organizations and individuals that are out there that are really trying to help make an impact there?
Yes, such an important question, and because these are challenging times. I know I mentioned COVID-19, the pandemic, but we're now, facing, the response to the death of George Floyd and other men and women of color throughout the country over many years. So I want to also say that I've always seen 2020 as one of the most important years for our democracy. We have, you mentioned the United States Census. We have the presidential election. All elections are important, but we have the presidential this year. And of course, we have the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which guaranteed women the right to vote. So I'm thankful that your organization acknowledges and recognizes civic engagement as a key component to empower women and, of course, to address issues of our day, such as any social or racial injustices. So, yes, we were the same panel. Let's start with census. I know we've been discussing elections, but you said it, Helen. Mm-hmm. I do consider the census and elections our fraternal twins of democracy, just because they are not exactly the same, but for me, they are related on how the processes together shape how government interacts with our lives. For those who don't know out there, the census is significant. It's important because it not only determines how many seats we have in Congress and how our state legislative districts are drawn. If you're not counted, you literally do not count in the eyes of our government. Like voting, census is our voice. It's our power in governmental decisions. So if you haven't already, and I'm being serious about this, please go to 2020census.gov and complete your census today. It only takes 10 minutes max. I've done it. And I know, Helen, you've done it. And you get to ensure that your community is getting fairly represented governmentally and that you will get, and we in New Jersey will get our equal share of federal investment in things like our schools, housing, roads, bridges, healthcare, and more. An estimated $40 billion in federal funding annually is at stake for New Jersey. And right now, I'm happy to report that New Jersey is above the national average in response rate, but we are New Jerseyans. We want to be a top state in response, making certain we get our fair share. So now, quickly returning to voting, civic engagement is what we all should be doing. It's a bare minimum for me. Understanding that we should vote, yet underscoring the voting in every single election. We're talking about school board elections. We're talking about fire district elections, primaries, etc. We have to check our voter registration. And speaking of voter registration, very important, as of March this year, those serving on parole or probation can register to vote. A new change in law, courtesy of our governor and state legislature. Additionally, as civic-minded individuals, we need to read our mail-in ballot instructions thoroughly. We need to be well prepared, well-informed citizens, and cherish our vote as our voice. We all have heard about the generational wealth. We always hear about that. Well, let's make this generational civic engagement. But I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir because anyone watching this already cares about our democracy. But I hope we all recognize and keep the momentum going about the significance of voting, of civic engagement, especially as women, especially this year. 100 years ago, as I mentioned, in August, the 19th Amendment was ratified by the states to grant women the right to vote. As Secretary of State, I've had the privilege to serve as co-chair alongside First Lady Tammy Murphy of the NJ Women Vote 100 initiative, which is the state's celebration of the centennial of votes for women. I have my pen on. We've had to move most of our major events virtually. So if I can, may I take an opportunity to ask each and every one of you to do some homework. Yes, homework. Learn about the women who worked to secure this right before 1920, including the women from New Jersey who we all can learn about. And I also want to make mention of the website to go to through my New Jersey Historical Commission. It's discovernjhistory.org. You can find information about the notable women who led the charge, but also you can learn about women like Fannie Lou Hamer, who fought to make sure that Black women and all women were able to access this fundamental right. There is power in knowing how we got here today and power in understanding why we have to work to protect our democracy together. So I'm hopeful that we'll all take a little time or more time to learn about this important moment for women as we celebrate NJ Women Vote 100. And that's not all. I just want to say I'm hopeful that everyone understands it is about voting, but it's also about other areas of engagement. If you aren't one, maybe if you have the time, sign up to be a poll worker. And that's not a volunteer service, it's a job, part-time, of course, on election day. And if I can speak about, just briefly, about a heroine of mine, Princeton's own Laura Wooten. Yes, Miss Wooten, she passed last year at the age of 98. But she holds an incredible record. Miss Wooten was the longest serving poll worker in United States history. She served as a poll worker in every election for 79 years. At the age of 18 in 1939, this young Black woman started serving our democracy, mindful that she couldn't even vote, let alone serve in a capacity, in an elected or appointed position. We were living in a different time. But I always say, especially to our students, when I speak about Laura Wooten, be Laura Wooten, be like Laura Wooten, be, when you get to a certain age, engage, civically engage, and perhaps be a poll worker.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's amazing. And just so everyone knows, we've been linking all the sites that our Secretary of State has mentioned here. The Discover New Jersey History.org is on here. And we will send you information about some of the virtual events that are upcoming. I believe there's one coming in August. Yes. And so we'll make sure that everyone watching has some information on it, and maybe we'll do something to showcase it right before. I also want to let you know, Secretary of State, that our viewer who inquired about the ballot already reached out to the county clerk, and they're sending her a new ballot. So thank you so much. So we've officially helped support voting.
Yes, and that's what we want to do.
So so much great information. Thank you. And for everybody watching, if there's someone in your life that you wish had been, watching along with you right now for all this great information, do not despair. You can share this broadcast with them. It will live on our Facebook page, and it's very easy to share. And we do encourage you to do that because we want as many people here in the state of New Jersey to understand all these important issues. So one more really important question before we close out.
Okay.
Mom to mom, I know we've had this, we started out talking about hiding from our kids to be able to have this broadcast uninterrupted today, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But you have obviously a very, very busy job. And how are you managing juggling motherhood with everyone being under the same roof and doing your work? Tell any tricks or tips for the rest of us?
Well, you're doing a fantastic job too, Helen, I have to say. And I just want to send a huge kudos out to all who too have handled and are still handling the work at home family balance. I won't pretend that it is easy. We are living in unprecedented times as workers, parents, and people. I have to say, I'm honored to serve as Secretary of State. I care about deeply doing a good job in this position, but I also care deeply, in doing a good job as a mom, four girls, Fallon, Farrah, Faith, and Fiona, if you're watching, I don't know. And I know we've all tried our best to adjust to this normal. And I do know, I realized it even before this, that as a mom, you become the best juggler out there. And I never knew that I could participate in virtual conferences with four virtual classrooms going on around me. And then, sometimes seeing a now turned 6-year-old since last week, popping in sometime, asking if she and her dolls can come in and also join in the conference. But again, this is a different, we've been experiencing this unprecedented moment for days and months since the beginning of March. And for me, we are running elections somewhat differently than before, but I just have to try to remain positive and remember that our children are always watching us. Mm-hmm. And they're watching how we deal with this pandemic and all that 2020 has thrown at us. And I've come to appreciate that even under these difficult circumstances, I've had, more time with my family, and I, would never take that for granted. And for me, especially as a parent of the four Black young ladies, when I saw my two oldest daughters, who are young voters, are getting more civically engaged in this climate, it's actually a blessing. It was wonderful to see the look on my girls' faces when they received their mail-in ballots. I somewhat, teared up because it made me appreciate all the more the impact of the work that I get to do each and every day for the people of New Jersey in this space, and the pride I have in raising young girls that care about our shared communities and future.
Well, I thank you. I do know I can appreciate the juggling act, and it's true, they are always watching, and
yes, they are.
And it's wonderful that all the women here in New Jersey have a role model like you. To be able to look to, and grateful that our governor noted that and made such a strong female cabinet to manage our state. And I know many parents right now are glued to their TV for the governor's announcement about school in the fall, which is definitely our competition. And I'm not so sure if I had to make a choice which one I'd be watching right now, but they can watch this one later, so it's okay.
That's okay.
But we're so grateful for you for taking this time today to share so much important information with us. Again, everyone, this will live on our Facebook page, so we do encourage you to share it with people in your life so that they do understand how to vote in July, on July 7th for the primary, and again, other key information for them to know about the November election as well. And again, as the Secretary of State said, please do not forget to fill out your census information. If for some reason you can't find it mailed to your home, the link is right here. It makes it very easy for you to do. It just takes a few moments, but it is so, so important. And I do encourage you. I love seeing so many people out protesting and sharing their passion about, all these important issues. But I really encourage everyone to keep walking to the polls, as I say, and make sure you cast your vote. Republican and Democrat is not always so important. It's just that you're putting people in office that represent your value system and represent your beliefs of what you want to see our country look like. And here at the YWCA, we support, as you all know, empowering women and eliminating racism and creating a fair and social, just and equal world for all. So that's where we'll be casting our votes. So thank you so much, Secretary of State, for your time. For those of you watching, we hope you join us next week. We have a series of another 4 wonderful presentations for you on YWTV next week. And we are continuing all of these great conversations we've been having to inspire and educate you while we've been social distancing. And even though people are getting out more, we still have found that this is a great opportunity to stay connected. We encourage you to follow the Secretary of State on her social media platforms. We have them noted here for you. And I also encourage you to follow the state of New Jersey government accounts as well. The Twitter account is pretty awesome, by the way, and you should
It
definitely be
is.
following that because it's just, fun and informational. So, with all that, everyone have a great weekend, a safe weekend, be well, and thank you again, Secretary of State, and take care all. Bye bye.